Keller, Jarrett Lerner, Hena Khan, Sarah Mlynowski, and James Ponti with us tonight. So welcome to the Renegades of Middle Grade. I am from the Country Bookshop in Southern Pines, North Carolina, and there will be links to our bookstore at the end of the session tonight, and you can order all the books from these amazing authors tonight. We love working with schools, we love working with media specialists, and we love working with amazing authors. So thanks for joining us.
I'm going to talk for a second. We'll give people a few minutes to sign on and kind of introduce you and what we're all about. So my name is James Ponti, and I am an author. I write middle grade books. We all write middle grade books, so that's nothing special in this crowd. And we are very happy that you're here with us tonight. The Renegades of Middle Grade is a group of 26 authors. We have a website you can visit anytime. It only gets updated in between deadlines, so it might be a little, it might stress some of our older books. Tonight we're talking about newer books, but that's renegadesofmiddlegrade.com. And the driving force behind this group was we would get together at events like Nerd Camp or the North Texas Teen Book Festival, all these things, and have such a good time together and such a good time interacting with librarians, especially, and the writers, that we wanted to create a virtual version of that. And we did that before we knew the whole world was going to be virtual. And so there's 26 of us. And the idea is that if you like any of us, hopefully you'll probably like all of us. They are some of my favorite people in the world. They are amazing authors. And we are going to tell you about our upcoming books. And we're going to start off. Does anyone have anything they want to say before? I'm asking now the Renegades, before we start getting into the dating part. Do we want to give them a minute or two more to log in, or are you guys ready to go?
Maybe plug that we do school visits.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to plug a couple. Elizabeth Eulberg, all the way from England today, calling us. We do group school visits, which I'm going to show a video at the very end of this that kind of shows you a sample of our school visit things. Also, I'm gonna plug this now. At the very end, I'm going to premiere my new book trailer. I'll be the last one to go. I'm going to show you that. So we have some fun. Oh, look at Max is already giving me like the unhappy look about that.
And a book trailer. No, I don't.
No, you can show it. You can show it too. We can. This is wide open. But
I have a real trailer, but not a book trailer.
So anyway, oh yeah, Max is actually.
I don't even have a fake real trailer and no book trailer. I also have a hard out in 2 minutes.
So. In 2 minutes. Okay, well that's good to know. So first off, we are going to be joined by Miss Erin Soderbergh Downing. Give you a little bit of background about Erin. Erin is going to talk to us today about a wonderful book called When Life Gives You Lemons, Make Peach Pie. She has written, I think, like dozens of books, it seems like is the number. This new one is already a Junior Library Guild Gold selection. And she lives in Minnesota, where undoubtedly it's cold. Erin, take it away.
Thank you. I'm super nervous. As a Bachelor fan, I'm going to compare myself to the first woman getting out of the limo tonight. So my name is Erin Soderbergh Downing, and I'm super excited to introduce you to the first book in the Great Peach Experiment series, When Life Gives You Lemons, Make Peach Pie. This comes out in April, and it's the story of the Peach family, 12-year-old Lucy, 10-year-old Freddie, and 8-year-old Herb, along with their sort of absent-minded father, Walter Peach. When this story opens, the Peach family is broken. They broke after the death of their mother 2 years ago, and have been sort of trying to find their way back to wholeness ever since. And as the story opens, Walter Peach, the dad, drops a surprise on his kids, which is that one of the things that their mom had been working on as an inventor before she died has just sold for $1 million. So suddenly the Peaches are millionaires. And the kids instantly start trying to figure out what they're going to do with this money. And dad says that he's decided to save most of it, donate some of it, but he set a little bit aside for fun stuff. So they start coming up with all the ideas of what they could do with this fun money. And that's when dad drops the next surprise on them, which is that he has already decided what to do with the fun money. And that is to buy a food truck. In honor of his late wife and one of her big dreams before she died, he has purchased a food truck, and not just any food truck, but a used food truck. And this summer, he and his kids are going to travel around the Midwest together selling pie. Well, the kids somewhat reluctantly get on board with this, and Freddie dubs it the Great Peach Experiment, a summer of trying to build up this business as food truck owners while also finding their way back to being a family. So this is their journey around the Midwest. I'm from the Midwest, so this is sort of a love letter to the Midwest and a lot of the places that my family has been on some of our road trips, including last summer when we went on an RV road trip together with 3 teenagers and myself and my husband crammed into an RV. So given that we have a tiny little bit of time and my daughter, it's awkward, I know that I brought a kid along on a speed dating event, but I did. She's keeping my time for me. I'm going to tell you just about one of the kids. So each chapter in the Peach series follows a different kid. So you readers really get a chance to get to know all 3 kids equally well. So every reader is going to be able to find someone that they connect with. But my favorite is 10-year-old Freddie. So this character is really based on my son, Henry, who is filled with random facts and constantly spouting out random facts. And when I told him the premise behind this book, he's like, are you kidding me? They have $1 million and they spent it on a used food truck. If I had $1 million, I would do blah, 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 and blah. And he started to sketch out some of the ways that he would spend $1 million on a private limo, sailing around the world. Well, I ended up getting him to sketch those things out, and we used his art to create Freddie's sketchbook in the book. So I actually have my own son who's drawn a lot of the illustrations in the Peach book. So that's one of my favorite things about this story. I hope everybody loves it and can check it out in April. And I'm going to pass it on to the next woman getting out of the limo.
All right. Hello. We actually don't have a limo here today, but the next person is certainly limo worthy if you know anything about Elizabeth Eulberg. Elizabeth is coming to us from London, England, and take it away, Elizabeth.
Thank you, everybody. I'm so excited to be here and talk about my book coming out in May, The Best Worst Summer. The easiest way to describe this book is 4 friends, 3 decades apart, over 2 summers, and 1 box of secrets. This book actually takes place in 2 different timelines. In present day, you have Peyton, who is convinced she is going to have the worst summer ever. Her family just moved to a tiny town in the Midwest. Like Erin, I'm a Midwest girl, grew up in Wisconsin. And she's like, this is miserable. I don't know anybody. I had to leave my best friend behind. Until she discovers a box that was buried in her backyard. She opens up this box and it's got like a lot of random stuff in it. There's a picture of 2 girls wearing best friends forever necklaces. It's dated 1989. There are a bunch of other things in there that she has no idea what they are. A cassette tape and a roll of film, you know, because kids today don't know. But it also has like a code in it. And then she realizes half of the best friend necklace is in the box. And it also says, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. And Peyton's like, wait, what happened in 1989? And now she realizes she has something to do that summer. She's going to figure out what happened in 1989. So in 1989, you get to meet Melissa and Jessica, who are going to have the best summer ever because they're best friends. All they have to do is like hang out, ride their bikes, go eat cheeseburgers, listen to New Kids on the Block on the radio. And yeah, it's going to be great until one of the girls' family secret unravels. And there is the mystery. So this book is a friendship story. It's also a mystery. And I have to say that the small town in this book is based on my small town. And it was a lot of fun writing about the summers where all I had to worry about was like hanging out with my best friend and listening to New Kids on the Block. Joey McIntyre fans out there, holla. But I will also say this, one of my favorite parts about when I was working on this book, and I think is going to be very interesting for teachers and educators to talk with their students about, and parents talk with their kids, is the difference between then and now. I had so many conversations with my friends, especially parents, about the difference of being a kid now versus being a kid when they were young. Kids now have a lot of more technology and ways to be connected. And back in my day, we had a lot more freedom. I joke that we were treated like feral cats. Our parents are like, leave, go, come back when the lights are on and time for dinner. And so I think that's going to be really interesting. And I'm going to apologize now if you feel old when someone's like, I don't understand why if you wanted to have a song recorded, you had to listen to the radio and couldn't just download it. Yeah, so I a few times I felt a little old writing this book, but I hope you really enjoy it. And thank you to everybody for being here, and hope you enjoy Best Worst Summer coming out in May. James, to you.
Hello, hopefully you can hear me now and I haven't messed everything up. So this next, that's great. And you know, Elizabeth did that great Shelby Holmes series about mysteries. So the mystery element, I'm sure, is going to be amazing in that. Next up is Christina Soontornvat, and I need to give a little intro here because I never thought Christina would show up tonight. Christina is in Austin, Texas. There's been no power, no water, no anything. She's such a trooper. And we're the renegades of middle grade, but some of the really more talented ones of us, which is not me, but it's Christina, write also picture books and other things. She's going to talk about a picture book now. But for those that missed it, because we are so unbelievably proud, about 2 weeks ago, Christina won 2 Newbery honors and a Siebert Award for her amazing books, A Witch in the Dark and All 13. She is a superstar. And I thought she would blow us off because she's too big a star, but here she is. So everyone, Christina Soontornvat.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Of course I'm here and excited to be here. My kids are riding their bikes to power our electricity right now. So go kids, ride pedal faster. I need better bandwidth. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, thank you for letting me come and talk about my picture book, Ramble, Shamble, Children. I'm going to share my screen really quick so I can show you some images from the book, because this is illustrated by Lauren Castillo, which I know many of you are fans of Lauren's work. She illustrated and wrote Nana in the City and My Friend Hedgehog. And Ramble, Shamble, Children is actually the very first book I ever sold. Was this book, and I've sold it like 2014, and this is my 13th book to come out, but I think it will be well worth the wait. So Ramble, Shamble, Children is the story of 5 children who live alone together in a farmhouse in the country, kind of Pippi Longstocking style. They take care of each other and grow a garden together. And one day they find a book in their attic and they start reading it and notice that their house does not look perfect like the house in the book. And they start to think, well, maybe they should make their house look just like the storybook. And so they start to do things like pulling up the carrots, and they start trying to paint their house, and it's a disaster. A disaster happens basically. And they have to learn that you know, what makes their house so wonderful is really it's just them, and they have to come together and figure out that their family is perfect just the way it is. And I think you can see from the pictures how lovely and warm and spring-like the images are, which is exactly where I wish I was right now. I'm excited about this book. You know, I wrote it so long ago and sold it so long ago. I had no idea when it was going to come out, and to have it come out in a year after so many of us have been in our homes and just spending time at home. I have spent more time with my family than I ever thought I would. It's really nice to have a book coming out that's about family and spending time with the people that you love the most, and what really makes a home important. And it's not the proper way that it looks, but it's what's inside that counts. So thank you so much for having me here, everyone. I'm so grateful to be with friends and other adults right now. So I'm going to kick it off to the next renegade. Thanks.
All right, so a little technical question I am throwing out to Kimberly and our tech squad here. I want everyone to know we are going to hang out after to answer some questions. I think I'm supposed to direct you to put questions in Q&A, which I have forgotten to do, but I can't seem to open it, so I don't know for sure that that's open. So put questions wherever you can, and we will try to find them. Our next one up is a good buddy of mine. They're all good buddies. It's Max Brallier, whose name I always misspell and mispronounce, but hopefully I got it right there. Max writes the incredibly popular and incredibly funny and wonderful Last Kids on Earth books, which I know your students love. And you know, here is Max.
Hi guys. First of all, I think Christina won another award today. I saw on her Instagram. I'm not kidding. I saw on your Instagram. So Christina, congratulations on another award that you won, the Civil Shepherd Award, I think. Okay, so my upcoming book is The Last Kids on Earth, Thrilling Tales from the Treehouse. This is not it. It's not out yet, so I had to tape the cover. It's just a taped thingy. So this is the first ever like full Last Kids graphic novel. Not a, I don't know, what people call things? Not an illustrated novel, but like it's all 100% art, color art. We even say in the front, 6 epic comics in full color. Okay, so it's about the kids are all hanging out in their treehouse with their monster buddies. There's Jack, Quint, June, and Dirk, and they have like they're forced into a sort of like story off where they each take turns telling stories. With the winner being the one who gets to like sort of battle this big giant monster because they all want to prove that they're the ones who are sort of brave enough and strong enough to battle the big giant monster, even though they're all secretly sort of scared. And so there's 6 different stories, all illustrated by different illustrators. Anusha Syed, Xavier Bonet, Lorena Alvarez, Jay Cooper, Christopher Mitten, and then the sort of framing device, the bridge story in between these individual stories is done by Douglas Holgate, who always does Last Kids. So I'm going to show you quickly just some of the art, which I printed out and then my daughter grabbed and sort of chewed on. And she's not at the age where she'll be chewing on art on things. That's weird. So this is one of my favorites. Is the kids, Quint and Jack decide to make their own comic book, and so this is what happens when sort of the kids write their own sort of story. It's called Doc Baker, scientist, inventor, super adventurous dude in the pernicious putty predicament, and it's sort of like art where it's like it's sort of designed as if Quint and Dirk had drawn them, and Jack have drawn them. Sort of the whole gag of it is it's just one really extended dumb joke where Quint has written the comic and made Jack not the hero but sidekick boy, and his only power is that he can do little like sidekicks, and he's like kicking monsters from the side. That's the whole gag. And then there's a whole story about Globlet, who's my favorite character, my favorite side character. This like cute little rubber putty creature, and it's just like really the most beautiful, sort of stunning. I'm just really excited to see everything in full color. Yeah, so this comes out in April, and and very importantly, there's one final story in here that bridges what happens in the last book, The Last Kids on Earth and the Skeleton Road, and the next upcoming book, which may be titled The Last Kids on Earth, and I don't think I'm supposed to say in the Doomsday Quest, but we're still playing around with it, or the Doomsday Race. We're still playing around with that. So we will see what happens if that's the title or not. And yeah, that's The Last Kids on Earth, Thrilling Tales from the Treehouse, and I feel like I'm over 3 minutes. So congrats, Christina, on your 19th award of the week, and I'm out. Bye.
Actually, I think Christina just won an award while Max was talking. So we've lost track. Next up, if anyone's had the great pleasure of reading, I realize I have most of these books here. I should be holding them up to help. Green Glass House by Kate Milford, which won the Edgar Award for Best Mystery. I believe her upcoming book is part of that series, so we want to hear all about it. And so, Kate, take it away.
Hey guys, I am also super happy to be here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Raconteur's Commonplace book, which is in fact a Green Glass House story. And if you've read Green Glass House, you've actually seen a little bit of this book. This book made its first appearance within the story of Green Glass House. Oh, and before I forget, this book comes out on Tuesday. So yes, get you to a pre-order space, possibly by way of the wonderful bookstore that is hosting us. And we also have a couple events next week and the week after, which you can find on my website, which is greenglasshousebooks.com. And now that I've said that, so yeah, if you've read Green Glass House, you've gotten snippets of this, because in Green Glass House, one of the strange guests that shows up at Milo's Hilltop Smuggler's Inn loans him this book. And it is a collection of folklore of the city of Nagspeak. And so this is in fact that book. It is a collection of folklore, but it's also Max, like yours, it's a collection of stories within a frame device. And it's actually a mystery set within the collection. So as these 15 guests who are stranded also in an inn within the story, they're flooded in there. Oh, I forgot to start my timer. They're flooded into an inn. And while they're trapped there, they decide to share stories. And as they do, over the course of 2 nights, as they share these stories, they begin to realize that some of their stories are interconnected. And then it also becomes clear that some of the storytellers are probably not who they say they are either. So it's part mystery and part puzzle, and it has different forms of folklore as well. Each story is a little bit of a different style, as each teller has a little bit of a different voice. And I'm going to take about a minute here and read you just a little bit from the first story that's shared. This is the one that actually Milo begins in Green Glass House. So again, if you've read that book, you've read this first paragraph. Listen, there was a city that could not be mapped, and inside it, a house that could not be drawn. It stood at the bottom of a hill on a street called Feldwell, a lane with broken pavement that had been overgrown and mostly hidden by ancient knotty pines. It was the kind of house that, in simpler times, might have been called enchanted or haunted or cursed. These houses appear now and then in the towns and cities that will tolerate them. Sometimes they survive, sometimes they do not. This house, the house in which this tale takes place, had survived for many, many years. It had copper pipes that reached down into the earth-like roots. Its woodwork had taught its stonework how to breathe in exchange for lessons in strength, and the ironwork that chased the eaves and climbed the walls and curled along the windows danced in the sunset. It allowed its rooms to roam like cats. It had permitted residents now and then, when the endless march of years got lonely, but it never kept them long. It was a crafty dwelling, and it had ways of regaining its solitude when visitors overstayed their welcome. A truth I've noticed, I believe it's a truth at any rate, is that the extraordinary calls to the extraordinary. Over time, little by little, spoon by spoon and cup by clock, one cupboard and one key and one battered hat at a time, this singular house collected things to it, things remarkable and peculiar and marvelous and uncanny. When the house was occupied, this led to occasional, well, let's call them adventures, though by adventures I don't mean only the cheerful and happily ending sort of occurrences. When it was empty, the house and its collection of wonderful and terrible furnishings whispered to each other. What happened this time? Well, I'll tell you, it was wonderful, or it was terrible. So that's the beginning of The Game of Maps, which is the first story in the Raconteurs Commonplace book. It is a standalone. You don't have to have read any of the other Green Glass House stories to read it. It is its own thing. However, if you've read Green Glass House or really any of the other books set in that world, you'll meet some familiar characters again, and you'll find some Easter eggs. So I hope you enjoy it, and that's all I got. Thank you.
All right. Well, we are moving along here, which is great. And we have celebrities. You know, not a lot of people realize that there's celebrities in the middle grade world. But coming up next is the 3-time Pokemon champion of North Carolina, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, Jake Burt.
It's accurate.
And 3-time, I think that's 3 consecutive. So that's Michael Jordan, and Jake Burt, and LeBron maybe. There's your goats. So take it away, Mr. Jake.
Well, thank you so much, James. And thank you for everybody for showing up. Much like Christina, I'm going to be sharing a little bit of art with you because I don't have an arc yet of my newest book, which comes out this September. And just like Christina's artwork, this is really colorful, really pretty, really happy, fun sort of artwork for my next book cover, which is The Ghoul of Windy Down Vale. My first 3 books are all realistic contemporary middle grade stories set in schools. And so I decided that for my 5th book, why don't we set a tween thriller in the middle of a swamp? And so that's what we got coming for you this September. And The Ghoul of Windy Down Vale is about small towns. Windy Down Vale is a small town in a small world. And every small town has its legends, right? And the Windy Down Vale's legend is the ghoul. It's a bloodthirsty, vicious creature, a murderous undead fiend, a lurking, gibbering monster. And it also happens to be a 14-year-old boy in a nifty costume. The truth is, Copper Innskeep is the Vale's darkest and best kept secret. By day, he's the affable son of the town's innkeepers. He runs errands for his mom and for everybody in town. They all like him. But at night, he prowls the muddy swamps surrounding the Vale, building the legend that keeps kids out of the bogs, bandits away from the trails, and Windy Down's mysteries unsolved. And everything's been going pretty well for Copper in that endeavor, by and large. At least until this terrified girl rides into town. She's bloodied, she's panicked. She's claiming that she and her father were attacked by some diabolical creature. The Ghoul, she says. She says she was attacked by the Ghoul. But Copper, who is the Ghoul, didn't go out last night, and the girl's father is nowhere to be found. So Copper takes it upon himself as the Ghoul of Windy Down Vale to find answers. But as he goes out into the swamps to try to figure out what the heck happened, all he finds is trouble, especially when word of this attack gets out of Windy Down Vale, and it attracts some worldwide attention. And in fact, the world's most decorated monster slayer, determined to bag the greatest trophy of all, shows up in Windy Down Vale. And of course, Copper is the greatest trophy of all. He is the Ghoul of Windy Down Vale. And so this book, unlike a couple of my previous ones, this book is decidedly tween. And I wrote it on purpose that way. The main character is 14 years old. In fact, this is the kind of book that sort of creeps up behind YA, smacks it on the rear end, then runs away, cackling mischievously. It's that kind of book. A little bit of fantasy, a lot of adventure, a lot of mystery, with a little dose of horror thrown in there. I'm super, super stoked about this book because it's my first one that includes poetry. I was always a big fan of sort of fantasy novels that included poetry when I was a kid. In fact, I think you can trace a direct line from J.R.R. Tolkien to Jacqueline Woodson to me. I think that's how it goes. Going along there. And so I wanted to just read you this very short poem that is at the beginning of the story here. It's called The Rime of the Ghoul, and it should give you some of the flavor of the story. The Ghoul of Windy Down Vale, some say, is a nightmare invented to frighten away the children from places they oughtn't to be, like boglands and quicksands as deep as the sea. But if it's not real, then how do they know of its terrible wail, the way its eyes glow, or the curve of its teeth jutting out of the jaw, all bloody and dripping as it eats your flesh raw? And how to explain the bones that we find, the corpses of animals, ones left behind with wounds made by claws, sharp as new knives? Are all of these false, just the tales of old wives? We suppose in the end, there's just one place to learn. We'll remember you kindly when you don't return. And so that's the poem at the start of The Ghoul of Windy Down Vale, which comes out this September. And now I will kick it back to James.
You know, it's hello, there we go. So another great, interesting book. For those that missed Cleo Porter last year, please go back and get it. Jake apparently knew there was a global epidemic coming in quarantine, and so he wrote a whole book about it. It's kind of like a quarantine for dummies, how to get out of trouble. This next up, so this is not the book that Beth is going to talk about, but Beth actually posed for this picture when she was 15. And now you'll look, her haircut, now she has a new haircut today. We're all very excited about Beth's hair. She looks fabulous, of course. And she
this is how boring our lives are.
She purposely put the Peloton bike behind her so we all feel bad about ourselves. Take it away, Miss Beth McMillen.
Thank you. I just want to say, following Jake, Greetings from Witness Protection, I think was his first book that came out that I love. So I encourage you to pick up that and all the rest of his. Thank you. I have 3 minutes, so I'm just going to jump right in. This is the series that I'm talking about. It's called Lolavenko Treasure Hunter. I'll show you an image of the next cover in a second. I don't have a book of that yet, but I do just have the image. So this series is about the 12-year-old girl version of Indiana Jones, who as a kid, I loved that character. So of course it has come back in my kid books. Lola lives in San Francisco with her very quirky great aunt Irma. And you find out in book 1 why she's living there. I'm not going to tell you that now. In an effort to find her missing father, Lola gets mixed up in a world where magical, mythical objects that absolutely should not exist do in fact exist. And it turns out that these objects in the wrong hands tend to mean big trouble. So Lola and her posse of friends get tangled up with a secret organization designed to find these objects first and keep the mayhem to a minimum. The second in this series, let me see if I can show you the cover art on the iPad. It's not great, but you get the idea. It looks much better in real life. That one is called Lolavenko and the Midnight Market. And in this installment, Lola is on the hunt for the Helm of Darkness, which is a helmet that was created by the god Hades that can make the wearer invisible. So the helm has been stolen, and the rumor is that it will be sold at the Midnight Market, which is a roaming party of a market where magical items that are not supposed to exist are bought and sold, and strange things are often happening around this market. So Lola's coming into this story having, between book 1 and book 2, gone on the hunt for a magical necklace that was worn by Pegasus, and her friends, fellow treasure hunters, screwed it up. So they are coming into this new hunt with their self-esteem very low and their confidence very low. But Lola knows if she can secure the helm, she can finally prove to everyone that she's as good as she thinks she is at treasure hunting. So there's a lot at stake in this installment. I tried to think of some words that just generally describe this series as well as my other series: action, adventure, humor, high stakes, fast pace. As an author, I am really interested in showing girl characters who have agency, who are learning the power of their voices, but are not superheroes, so that are a little bit more relatable, even if some of the stuff they're doing is a little outrageous. Girls who might be afraid or nervous or experiencing that whole range of, preteen emotions. But these girls are still demonstrating grit to keep going and tenacity not to quit when things get hard. I think there are real life lessons in that. And while my books are fun, those lessons feel very real to me. As far as what readers these books are going to appeal to, kids who like being on the edge of their seats, who like to laugh, who enjoy solving puzzles, and those who might benefit from seeing girls front and center, driving the action and succeeding in the types of books that are still mainly dominated by boy characters. So that's it. That's Lolavenko and the Midnight Market, coming August 31st. I wanted to say a quick thank you to James for organizing us and making so many fun things happen. I just feel like by knowing him, I get to do all these cool things with so many cool people. So thank you.
Now I'm embarrassed. All right, so so next up we have a surprise guest. He wasn't on the list. Stewart Gibbs wasn't satisfied having 3 successful series. So there's Fun Jungle, there's Spy School, there's Moonbase Alpha. So he decided to add another one. Charlie Thorne debuted last year. He's a wonderful character. And Stewart was very kind. He did the blurb on my book that says a must read. So now I'd like to return the favor and say a must watch. Please watch Mr. Stewart Gibbs.
Thank you so much, James. Thanks for having me here, folks. I'm going to talk to you guys today very quickly about this Charlie Thorne and the Lost City, which is the sequel to Charlie Thorne and the Last Equation, but you don't have to have read this one to read this one. Charlie Thorne is the smartest person on earth, even though she is only 12 years old. And because of her great intellect, she has been dragged into all sorts of action and adventure and intrigue by the CIA, who in the first book have brought her in to try and track down things that the greatest thinkers from throughout history have discovered, but found they could not trust the rest of humanity with. So they've hidden them away. In Charlie Thorne and the Last Equation, she's after an equation that Albert Einstein discovered and hid away. But in Charlie Thorne and the Last City, she is hot on the trail of something that Charles Darwin discovered. That's why I'm wearing my amazing Charles Darwin t-shirt here today. And now Charles Darwin, of course, famous for developing the theory of evolution and going to the Galapagos Islands. But what a lot of people don't know is that Charles Darwin was only on the Galapagos Islands for 2 weeks of that journey. He was in South America for 4 years of that journey. And so in this book, it turns out that he discovered something very treacherous and dangerous and down somewhere in South America. And Charlie Thorne is now up against all sorts of bad guys to try and find out what that is. And there's all sorts of action adventure going through some of the most amazing and tropical and adventurous places on Earth as she tries to beat all the bad guys to what Darwin has discovered. And that's what I got.
And quite the sudden finish there, Stewart. All right, just jumping off the cliff at the end.
I'm trying to. I'm taking speed dating seriously here.
Well, you know, and I think it's safe to say that not all of us had the greatest dating history growing up. So speed dating is probably as good as we could have hoped for. You know, I'm not speaking for Stewart. Stewart once, by the way, just so you guys know, helped Charlize Theron find a cat, or
no, her dog. Her
dog got lost in the neighborhood, Stewart, and then he didn't go help her because he was worried that she might take that as him hitting on her.
That is not
Stewart Gibbs.
I was worried that my wife would think that I should not run off with Charlize.
You don't need to revisit.
Okay, 11 o'clock at night. That's what happened.
Coming up next is a absolutely wonderful writer who had, like, I think 7 books come out last year. I met, not only that, Supra also does, she writes Bollywood movies, she's fun, she cooks, she has gorgeous kids, she illustrates books, she does everything. And Supra is here to talk about her upcoming book, and I don't want to spoil what that is, so we'll let her do all the talking. Hello, Supra.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I have 3 books coming out in the next 3 months this year, so I'm really excited for all of those. This comes out May 18th, that thing about Bollywood, but this Tuesday is when Strong as Fire, Fierce as Flame comes out, and that is my next historical fiction book. For those of you who've read Ahimsa, this takes place almost 100 years before it in 1857. And that was the year that the rebellion against the British East India Company began in South Asia. So this is the story of Meera, who is a child bride who runs away from the life she has no say in, only to end up a servant for a house owned by a high-ranking officer in the British East India Company. And when the rebellion comes to their town, she must decide whether to continue her life of relative safety or join the rebellion and fight against her native oppressors and her British colonizers. So I got the idea for this book when I thought back to my childhood and how I never had the opportunity to see myself in a book because there weren't books being published then with South Asian characters. But there was one day in elementary school when our teacher read us a little bit of The Secret Garden. And I remember sitting up a little taller and feeling seen for the first time ever. And then I quickly realized that the South Asian characters in the book were just in the backdrop in their own land, and their sole purpose was just to serve the main character, and they were treated as less than human. And I felt ashamed and humiliated. And so I wanted to write a story that really challenges who we center in so-called classics and in history class and social studies, and how we portray people who did terrible things during brutal periods of colonization as amazing explorers who discovered new lands. So I hope this book does that. It is exciting, there's action, it's empowering, it's full of girl power, and I hope you enjoy it. So back to you, James.
All right, all of a sudden we're picking up the pace here. This is the speed dating is getting its speed. Supra writes really fantastic books. This group writes really fantastic books. I'm amazed at the scope that some of the people have. So Supra has also coming up that thing about Bollywood, which is very different than historical, and a picture book, and you know it's really great. And so really check out these authors. We're talking about the new stuff. We'd love for you to pre-order them. We'd love for you to order them from Country Bookshop, but check out these authors and see some of the books that they write, because there's some of these names you don't know as well as you should, and they're really special. This next name, though, I think everyone knows. I think everyone here is part of the Jarrett Lerner fan club. So our only ask is that you don't leave the speed dating the second he's done, which is our fear, which is why we put him towards the end here. And I'm going to brag on Jarrett for a moment, because what Jarrett did this, the way Jarrett turned the initial parts of the quarantine into a way to engage kids into activities was amazing. And he is an amazing person, amazing writer. So here's Jarrett. So Jarrett, take it away.
Thank you, James. You're too kind. Thank you guys very much. And I just want to say before I talk about my own books that I am fortunate enough to have copies of both of Supriya's new novels, not picture books, and they are both astounding. So if you weren't convinced to check them out already, go check them out. I'm going to talk about The Engineered Strike Back, which just came out actually last week. So this one is already out, but you can and should still order it from the Country Bookshop. This is the third book in the Engineered series, and it concludes this story arc. So in the first book, the Engineereds accidentally unleashed a horde of ravenous farting robots on their town. In the second one, they hunt down the last of the most tenacious robot and dismantle him with the help of a friend in the sky. And in the third one, they discover from that friend that robots are the least of their problem. And to give a minor spoiler, they basically find out that planet Earth is about to be destroyed, and in its place is going to go up a giant intergalactic billboard to advertise beans. So that's the Engineered Strike Back. And rather than tell you too much more about the book itself, I'd love to just say quickly what it was like to write this book, because this was the ending of this series. And so there were things in this book that I planted that I then sort of tugged out and that grew in this book that I always knew I wanted to bring up in this book. And I finally sort of got to flesh them out and really explore them. So I write a lot of stuff full of humor. And I do that for a number of reasons. I hope that kids read my books and walk away believing or feeling like they've gotten a confirmation that reading can be joyful and fun for the sake of being joyful and fun. But I also use humor to get kids to trust me so that they will follow me down paths and take up questions that they might not otherwise if I didn't, make them laugh first. So in addition to being very funny, I hope these books get kids thinking about questions and ideas about leadership and responsibility to each other, to our neighbors, to strangers, to friends, to the planet as a whole, and sort of what kind of people they want to be as they take over the leadership roles in our world. So that is the Engineered Strike Back. And this Tuesday, you can get all 3 Engineered's books in a boxed set called the Rogue Robot Collection. So you can check that out too. And I'm going to pass it on. Thanks all for joining us. This is a lot of fun.
So you can see just the breadth of the kinds of things that the Renegades do. It's so much fun to be part of that group. I also want to give a little shout out to Country Bookshop and to all the independent bookstores, that they really are a huge part of what makes middle grade work. They, we're cultivated by booksellers hand selling our books one at a time to people, and then that grows into little fandom, or they read the next book, and it's so vital and it's so great that tonight, this is an example of the kind of thing that independent bookstores could bring to you, which is so wonderful. Renegades was built on the concept of people you want to be with, and I met Hena Khan on a transport bus at a convention in Irving, Texas. And I knew within like 3 seconds that I wanted to do whatever I could to hang out with Hena. One thing you have to do, we have a video on, maybe we'll repost it later or something, of some of us singing the song Renegade by Styx, just to see Hena do her Slash guitar solo. It's totally worth it. Hena, take it away.
Thanks, James. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Thanks, James, for putting this together. I love the Renegades, and I love seeing all the familiar names in the chat. So thanks for being here. I'm so excited to talk about my latest book, which is a sequel to Amina's Voice. It's called Amina's Song. This is an advanced copy, but I heard finished copies are on their way soon. And in this book, we get to continue Amina's journey, literally, as she travels to Pakistan after many years to visit her uncle who we met in the first book. And you don't have to read these books in order, but this sequel does continue the summer after the first book ends. And in it, Amina really, the first part of the book, she falls in love with Pakistan and makes a promise to her uncle to share the beauty of this place that she's gotten to connect with when she's back home. But then when she's back in Mlynowski, her hometown, she finds that it's not as easy as she thought, and that she actually has a lot of conflicting feelings of her own to reconcile and unexpected reactions of other people to work through. And like Amina's Voice, I drew a lot from my own experiences when I wrote this book. And I visited Pakistan when I was right after middle school, when I was a little older than Amina. And I was so overwhelmed by the love that I got from my relatives, some who I hadn't seen in years, the connections that I made, and this amazing, like, contradictory, sensory overloading type of place where I didn't always fit in or even really know how to behave. But one of the most important reasons that I felt so welcome and so comfortable was my uncle, my Dayajan. So for those of you who met Dayajan in Amina's Voice, this is who the character was inspired by. I'll give you a close up. That's him right here, my dad's older brother, and that's my dad, and that's between me. And as you can see, he's so handsome. He's like a cross between, I don't know, Charleston Heston and like The Godfather or something. But he was sort of commanding and gruff and imposing at times, but just the sweetheart underneath who I really bonded with, and who over years, like, I continued to strengthen my bond with through letters that we wrote to each other. And Amina does a similar thing, but as a child of today, she uses FaceTime. In the book, Amina also evolves in her relationships with her friends. She makes a new friend, a boy named Nico, who she bonds with over their shared love for music and his ability to make and produce music. And of course, coming from her background from a Pakistani household, this raises eyebrows, and everyone has tons of questions about the nature of their friendship, which she herself needs to figure out, what it means for her. And Amina gets to pursue her love for music in new ways, and we get to see how she progresses in that part of her life. But I hope the book is useful for conversations around the danger of the single story, how we shape our perception of people and places, especially those that we don't really know very well, and the power of negative news, and most importantly, how to use our skills to make a difference in our communities and the power of service. This comes out March 9th, so pretty soon, and we're actually running a special pre-order campaign. So if you order today from Country Bookshop, you'll actually will donate a copy of Amina's Voice to First Book for every copy purchase. So I hope you'll enjoy it. Thank you so much.
How great is that? I have a book. We all have books. A lot of us have books coming out March 9th. You guys just need to go to the bookstore on March 9th and buy everything. That would be good. Coming up next, we have Sarah Mlanowski, who is, her from Upside Down Magic. You know her from Whatever After, all kinds of things. She is one of the funniest, one of the best people you could ever hang out with. Here is Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So I'm Sarah. I'm the author of 40 different books. I'm mostly known for my Whatever After series, which is a fractured fairy tale series. Abby and Jonah fall into different fairy tales, mess them up, and then have to help the characters find new happy endings. There are 14 books and 2 special editions in the series. It's great, probably best for I'd say 2nd to 4th graders, but it also works as a read aloud for younger readers. And the next book is coming out April 6th. It's called Good as Gold. I don't have a finished book, but I do have the art here, which hopefully you can see. It's very cute. The artist did an amazing job with these books. So I've always loved fracturing fairy tales. As a kid, I loved Princess and the Pea, but I hated vegetables. So when I told the story, I changed it to the princess and the M&M to make it a little bit more delicious. Now I have 2 daughters, and when I started reading them the fairy tales, I found myself once again changing the happily ever afters. I loved the stories, but I really could not stomach the endings. The only way Cinderella can leave her stepmom's house is by marrying the prince. And why can't she get a job and then get her own apartment? And did the Little Mermaid really have to give up her tail and her tongue to get the guy? I wrote Whatever After to kind of inject some girl power into these fairy tales. And in the latest book, Good as Gold, Abby and Jonah go through the magic mirror in their basement, and they end up in the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Now, after they accidentally arrive in this cottage, about 5 minutes before Goldilocks does, after they arrive in the bear's cottage before Goldilocks does, they decide that they don't want to mess up the story, so they hide under the bed. Then when she comes in, they realize that she's actually there to look for something. She has something that she wants to find. She's not just there to eat all their porridge and to break their chairs and sleep in their bed. She has a plan. They decide that they're going to help Goldilocks and change the story on purpose. Like in all the Whatever After books, Abby and Jonah end up teaching the main character that kids are strong enough and smart enough to save the day, and that nothing is set in stone. Futures are not prescribed, and Goldilocks, like Snow White and Cinderella and the Little Mermaid and the reader, can change and chart her own path. Okay, a fun note about this book is that it's the first one in the series that's actually a 2-in-1. When I decided to name it Good as Gold, I realized I had to include the infamous Rumpelstiltskin to cause a little mischief. And my series, I'll just mention for those who are teachers, fits well into any type of fractured fairy tale unit at school. I even have an activity guide. You can reach out to me on my website, sarum.com. I'm happy to send it along. And while I have you, I'll also take a second to plug Upside Down Magic, my other middle grade series that I write with Lauren Markle and Emily Jenkins, and mention that the movie is now available on Disney Plus, so you can watch it. And once again, thank you all for coming and for watching us today. And thanks, James, for organizing it.
So are we back? Hello. Okay. So we have given you 12 authors so far talking about new books in less than an hour. We're gonna do a few questions and answer the questions in a minute. But I really want to stress too, one of the origins, one of the goals of Renegades is to connect with the librarians and the media specialists. We are really in this together, and we need to find ways to work together. So we hope that this telling you about what we have coming up is one way. At the very end tonight, we'll show the video of what we would do for school visits and all. I'm going to talk about my book now, though. So I am the author of City Spies, among others. City Spies came out last year, and the sequel, the second book in the series, City Spies Golden Gate, comes out on March the 9th. City Spies is the story of 5 kids from around the world who have fallen through the cracks, and they're all adopted by a British spy who raises them as a family of spies. And what I'm going to do here is actually I am going to debut, because it doesn't come out till tomorrow, the trailer for City Spies 2, and you'll get the first look. You'll have the first look at it, and then tomorrow, please feel free to share or retweet or whatever, and please feel free to show your students. Hopefully they'll like it. So here we go. Let's see if I got this right and figured out how to do this. All right, so this is the trailer for City Spies. And that's 4 minutes long. That is not the trailer for City Spies. All right, let's try this again. This is the trailer for City Spies. No, and it still keeps coming up the wrong thing. Yes, of course, it's the only one who can't figure it out is the last one. Why is that not coming up? I think because I had 2 videos that we're going to, okay. For the 3rd time, let's see if I can debut this trailer. Maybe it's so good it can't debut. Here you go.
Can they stop a hijacking in the North Sea? They painted one of the most famous libraries in the world, outsmarting evil women chasing them through Alcatraz. These are just some of the questions that face the City Spies. 5 5 kids from around the globe. A hacker, a magician, a code breaker, a rebel, and a genius. Operating out of a secret location in the north of Scotland, they're the biggest secret in British intelligence. In their first adventure, they went to Paris to match wits with a criminal mastermind determined to release a deadly virus. Now they're back and tracking a double agent across the globe. As they travel from London to San Francisco, they have to risk it all to solve the mystery and save the day. City Spies and Golden Gate. From New York Times bestselling author, James Ponti.
So that is the pitch for City Spies. Can you bring all of the Renegades on? If some may have dropped off during, but can we all share the screen again? Okay. So is everyone be able to see everyone? We want to do that thing like at the beginning. We have all 13 up there, I think. And so I want to just ask a couple questions. We got some sent to us and along the way. So I want to start off with Christina and Hena. So we can highlight both Christina and Hena. You guys both write stories that have a lot of research involved. Hena talked a little bit about the research that she did on her books. Christina, for those who have read all 13, is amazing, the story about the Thai soccer team that was rescued from the cave. And I just wonder, from your vantage point, you guys can answer however you want, because we are writing in kids and they're being used in schools. How important is research to what you do, and what are you looking for when you're researching?
Gosh. I mean, for all 13, the research for the cave rescue book was really intense. I mean, I feel like I have to research so much more than ever gets included in the book. Are you like that too, Hena? Like the amount, it's like a huge funnel, like what actually gets in, right?
Definitely, yeah. And then picking what to include or not can be, I'm sure, especially for that book, it must have been hard.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, I feel like middle grade readers are so discerning. And if you want to tell a story that they're going to be entranced by, and you're going to tell a truthful story because they know, they're going to know if you're kind of covering stuff up, you have to do all of that behind the scenes work. Yeah. Hena, would you say yes?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it comes down to relatability still in the end. So even if you're throwing in, historical facts or a setting or, something interesting about a place that you're visiting or something that happened in the past, it still comes down to what kids are going to find fascinating. And I think that was something I had to figure out along the way, that maybe they're not so interested in facts and figures and where the stones were imported from, but they want to know about the sensory stuff and the food and the stuff that kids love. So I love researching it all and getting other people's takes and of course making sure that what I write about feels authentic to people who maybe are closer to that experience than I am.
All right. Next up, let's have Stewart and Beth in the spotlight if we can. So Stewart and Beth, wait. Is Beth still around? Did I include someone?
I see her.
Yes, I see her up there. All right.
I'm here.
Yep. So both Stewart and Beth, like I do, write spy stories and action adventure. And I'm wondering from the two of you, because actually the three of us have all written spy stories, but from your vantage point, do you start with the ending and how it's all going to come together and where you're building to, or do you build along the way and then go back and have to change things as you discover new things? Beth, why don't you start off on that?
Oh boy. Honestly, I feel like a bit of a fraud because I usually start out with some characters that I've gotten into my head and I think they're really cool and I don't know what to do with them. So I send them on this, crazy mystery filled adventure to be able to spend time with them. I would love to say that I map it all out diligently and it flows beautifully. That would be a giant lie. I end up rewriting parts and moving things around and getting rid of stuff because now it doesn't fit and the ending I thought I wanted doesn't work. It's not the one. It's a it's a mess. My work is a mess. And I think if people saw the process, they'd be horrified. But hopefully it all comes out in the end. That's a truthful answer. I don't want to give you the one like, oh, it's so easy. I map it all out and it goes perfectly.
I just map it all out and it goes perfectly.
I knew you were gonna say that.
No. I start with a plot. Actually, I come up with what I want what my bad guy's evil plan is, and then I kind of work backwards to figure out like where the story would take place and what sort of action sequences I could get there, and what sort of conflicts could arise between my hero and his team en route. And but I do spend a lot of time working everything out ahead of time on yellow pads, so that I try to have it pretty. But I spend a really long time working out my idea. I mean, I'm really thinking about an idea for months before I actually sit down and start writing it.
Now I just need to know this because I'm struggling with this on my writing, so I'm really trying to steal from you guys. Do you have in your head a balance of how much action, how much logic, code breaking, and how much other stuff there is? Is there a recipe? Because I'm struggling in book 3 of City Spies figuring out the ingredients. So I'm cheating now.
I feel like as a reader, I come to that as a reader less than as a writer. There's a balance that I look for in the stuff that I like to read, where if it's all action and all thrills, then I never get to know the character. I never get that sort of intimate relationship with them where I understand them or I feel for them or whatever. So I think you have to leave space for that. I think when you're in the 3rd book or the 4th book of a series and you feel like you know them really well, it's sometimes easy to forget that part and just like charge ahead with the stuff that's happening. But just leaving that space for them to talk to each other and have those quieter moments where the readers can actually connect. So when the action happens, they care about what the outcome is.
I can't even believe James is asking this question because I've read.
I can't
I've
either.
read the next book and it's great. You got it's exactly right. You got the right.
I think Stewart, he's trying to tell us that this is what we need to do more and that he's good.
I'm talking about the one I'm writing now that comes out next year. I know, but I have to reinvent this every time. All right. So next up here, we are going to go with Elizabeth, if she's still awake, out in the middle of London, and Supra. And so here's an unfair, spring on you question. But what I love about your books, both of you, are the diversity of the types of books that you write. There's some that's contemporary and historic for Supra, some with Elizabeth that are more character and relationship based, and some mystery things and elements like that. But I know both of you really concerned about the readers, and you're concerned about the relationships that you show. So in that character development, if you could talk just a little about character development and what you're hoping the readers that we target, the tweens or young teens, whatever, what are you hoping to give them on the page? In addition to a great time and fun and laughter and whatnot, what are you hoping to instill with them? We'll go with Supra first.
Okay.
How brave of you, Elizabeth.
We are very polite people.
No, I know.
I guess for me, I didn't really find my voice until college. So it's important to me when I'm writing tween characters to make them get to that point a lot earlier than I did. So I think I spend a lot of time thinking about where my characters are at the beginning and where I want them to end up in the end. Even a book like That Thing About Bollywood, which is full of magic and really funny moments, is really about expressing yourself and your feelings and being able to do that. So I guess that's what I focus on a lot. What about you, Elizabeth?
I like pairing two unlikely kids and making them friends. In the Shelby Holmes series, Shelby and my Watson could not be more different because Watson's like chill, Shelby is not. Watson's nice, Shelby is not. Watson's good with people, Shelby is not. But in The Best Worst Summer, there's a few different friendships, and you also see friendship begin and another friendship end. And I feel like when you're a tween, and even when you're a teen, but especially like in the middle school years, you form such strong friendships with people. And I like exploring those connections, but also knowing that you're going to get in a fight with a friend and it's not going to be the end of the world, because everything is always such a big deal when you're younger. And I wish I could have told tween Elizabeth to chill out a bit.
And then one other thing that I think is, and I could be off on this because it's COVID brain and whatnot. Music is a big deal to both of you. Music comes into play in books and things. Do you hear music when you're writing? Are you writing to specific things about Bollywood or about New Kids on the Block? Are you just trying to? Are you writing about the songs? Or are you writing about the love of music? I guess I'm trying to get at.
For me, it's the love of music and the love of just like, I mean, Bollywood was my life for a very long time when I was growing up. It was the only place where I saw representation and where I saw, brown bodies being very proud of who they are and being able to celebrate their culture without any shame. So for me, it's really about that love and that connection to culture when I'm writing about Bollywood in my books.
All right, and Elizabeth.
Oh yeah, music was just such a big part of my life. I played piano since before I could remember, and it was like what kind of made me special when I was a kid. And it just, yeah, it means a lot to me. In Best Worst Summer, I only listened to music in 1989 when I wrote those chapters, and I was actually on a writing retreat, and everybody would see me kind of like this, and they wouldn't want to walk by me because if they caught my eye, I would sing whatever I was singing, and I'd be like, girl, it's true, and they're like, damn it, and they would have that song in their head for the rest of the day. So it was like, oh no, Liz is popping, don't make eye contact. I would just start singing random songs. Yeah, they're welcome.
All right. Up next, let's have Sarah and Jarrett. I just keep spinning the wheel of magic here. Because Sarah, well, both their books have a lot of humor in them. Sarah's talking about the fractured fairy tales, and Jarrett really likes talking about farts. It's a thing for him. And so what I'm wondering from you guys is what approach do you take to the humor? What are you looking for? Is it punchlines? Is it gags? Is it build? Just tell me your beliefs on humor.
I feel like I'm not really that funny in real life, but I end up
You're
trying
not.
to make. I'm not.
You're incredibly funny.
I get reviews that are like, oh, this is screamingly funny. And my family's like, you're not funny at all. So I don't know why my books end up being funny. I think they're not really. I'm just extremely passionate about things, and that comes across as amusing. I don't know. But I feel, and also when I want to make a joke, I usually just text Max and Stu and ask them to make it funnier for me, and they're good about that. But no, I think when I'm trying to come up with something, I just rewrite until it hits it, until it gets the joke. I'll just keep pushing it. I'll be like, what is the most ridiculous thing here that could happen? I do a lot of humor for set pieces. Like, will she fall off the stage? That would be funny, as long as she doesn't get injured. Or, what would happen to make this the most absurd and to make someone laugh? And then I often read it to one of my kids to see if I actually get a laugh out of them. And often I'll read something and they'll just have a straight face and I'll be like, nope, that didn't work. And I'll try it again, or just twist it a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that it's definitely work. Like I just have a book in front of me. I have a notebook in front of me right now, and it's a draft of a graphic novel. And I've got this spread right here where it just says action spread. And then there's some notes about what it could be. So my manuscripts will say funny line, or like, this needs to be funny right here. And then it's often work. But I think that, sorry, what?
Did you publish, just insert joke here to kids?
Yeah.
Will that work?
Well, with my activity books, I'm now starting to have kids do half the work for me.
Yeah, so there you go.
No, but for me, I think it's often like situational. I think I try to find a situation that lends itself to funniness. And usually if I can get that and get all of the sort of elements together, like the right recipe, like something comes from that that sort of the funniness comes out, but it's about getting all the elements together, right place, right time, right characters, right emotions and feelings. And then, yeah, I'll test it out on, like Sarah does, on my kids or my niece and nephews, and they're usually pretty good gauges.
All right. Well, that is fantastic. They're both very funny, by the way, in real life and in hanging out. And that is actually probably the most fun thing about being a middle grade author, is how many funny people you get to encounter at work, and it's still called work. So next up, we have Kate and Max coming in. And both, what I wanted to get out of the two of them is, you know, Green Glass is a world that Kate has created with these multiple books, and Max has these books from Last Kids. And whether you knew at the beginning or not that you were going to write multiple books in the series, there's a lot of building that needs to take place. There's a lot of stuff. So how do you approach the world of building that world, and how do you keep track of everything? Do you keep little Bibles or notes of what you said in 3 books ago, so that you make sure you're not contradictory? Because certainly some kid will find a mistake if you don't.
That's a really good question. I'm really interested to hear, Max, how you answer this one, because I'm really bad about keeping notes. And the shared world of these books now, it's up to like 9 books. And so it's the Green Glass House books, but everything I've got so far is set in that same world. And I have painted myself into so many corners, because I sort of follow Beth's mode of doing things. Like I like to see what happens when I throw these characters into a situation, or like I'll find some little bit of folklore or something that maybe I got interested in a previous book, and think like, well, what can I do with that? And then all of a sudden I'm running up against something that I set into play in a previous book. And so it can make for some really like interesting problem solving. And then sometimes I'll plant seeds for myself later. Like I might want to come back to this, so I'll throw something into one book so that I can reference it back later. And every once in a while I'll find something where I come back to it years later. I'm like, I have no idea what I was talking about here. And which I find sometimes frustrating, but sometimes a lot of fun. Part of the joy of it is sort of rediscovering those things, and it makes it feel like I'm learning things about this world too, and sort of solving these mysteries sometimes in the process of writing it. I am a very messy world builder, but that's because I kind of like to be able to explore it when I'm writing it too.
I'm incredibly, like, horrifically messy world builder. I'm like the current, I'm on Last Kids 7, and like it is the one that has, I'm like, okay, I need to organize some documents that explain like who wants what and what's happening and who has which powers, because like I spent like 6 months in this manuscript before realizing that like there were things that like if I had just read the previous book first before I started writing, instead of just like diving in, it would have it's so bad, the number of like the way I wrote myself into the, like I wrote this whole complicated thing that doesn't track at all. And I just like, I'm so bad at it. So this is the book where I'm like, okay, I'm finally like making a big document about who bought this and 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 this. Because it's like, I'm like, this is like the first book where I'm like losing it with this. I don't know how, I think if it wasn't one a year, it would be a little bit like, I don't know, if I could sort of like what is Game of Thrones or something, like where you have like all this time, like then I'd be like, okay, like I can like think about it. But I feel like I'm always like, okay, now I can jump to the next one and don't give myself time to look at the previous ones. So I'm a really messy world builder. I plant seeds. I plant a huge one where these kids in the like June solo book, where they get this like cool armor upgrade, and totally forgot about it, and you never see it again. And so now, like in the new book, I'm trying to figure out a way for them to like go back and find, in the next book, go back and find the armor, because like I thought it was a really cool idea, and I still like the idea, but I completely had forgotten about it. And the thing that they had the armor in, I blew up, so like it like exploded, and so it Yeah, I'm like really bad type. I definitely plant seeds, like hoping that I think something might be cool, or like that'll be fun to come back to, or people think that I know what I'm doing because I mentioned this earlier. So yeah, I'm really bad, and this is the book that finally made me say like I need to get a control of my life.
But Max, do you find that when you have like painted yourself into those corners, like you wind up finding really interesting solutions for them that you might not otherwise have come to?
Maybe, yeah, sometimes, but I still wish that like, I just wish I knew everything was going to happen and I could just look into the future and be like, okay, this is the big outline. And now just sit down and write it. And I'm trying to like get ahead of it more so that I can like know like what's going to be coming, as opposed to being like, maybe this will happen. And then like, oh wait, that would have been cool to know 3 books ago.
I feel like this is someone's going to tell us that this is an argument for like outlining stuff, and I'm going to plug my ears and pretend not to hear it.
Okay, I'm not on this question, and I'm coming in to interrupt because I think I'm getting the next question. I'm guessing. I have to say, as somebody who's written 4 series, you guys have got to be doing series Bibles. I learned that lesson the hard way when kids would ask me questions about stuff that like came up in one book, and then in the next book, like I had a different eye color or something. So this is such a lesson I've learned, and I'm not even building complicated worlds. I have like, 37 puppies on a ship, and I've got a series Bible. You guys have like complicated worlds with powers and stuff.
Erin, listen, I was sure that anyone was going to let me write a series rather than just being like, you can write the next companion book. Then I'd sit down and write a series Bible. But I keep winding up with these companion. Let me give. Can I give you?
You want to hire me, and I will be your assistant to create your series Bible for you? It's like a dream job.
A series from me.
I'm also really bad about like having an idea or something, like a really important idea, and like writing it like down on a piece of paper and then losing it, or forgetting that I did it, or I have like 9 different Word documents and like 6 different notes documents, and then like something in Evernote, and then like an email draft that has like the key to the whole series, and then like I will spend like 9 months getting back to like have like I figured it all out, and then find a note and be like, oh, I figured it out 9 months ago. It's like Memento. It's like Memento. I need to start tattooing like, oh, Jack.
Let's bring Jake in here and let Kate and Max go and start working on the outlines they should have written a long time ago. You guys, you've written again a lot of diversity in the books. Is really great, but both of you tackle, I think, real life issues. The new Peach thing, the passing of a parent, and Tornado. We've had bullies, and we've had all kinds of real issues that face kids. And I'm wondering, how you're writing entertainment, you're writing these things, how you blend those real life problems and present them in a way that is still part of the book. How you go about that synthesis.
Jake, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I cheat. And how I cheat is that I'm also a 5th grade teacher. And so I see the types of books that my students are picking up and reading, what is relevant to them. And you can tell when a kid picks up a book and it's not relevant to them. I mean, it can be fantasy, it can be sci-fi, whatever it is. But if they don't have a touchstone in that book, if they don't have something they can connect to, in pedagogical parlance, we would call it schema, right? Text to self, text to world, so on and so forth. But that's a legit thing. That's how kids interact with books. Maybe they need funny, and so they connect to the funny, or maybe they need an escape and they connect to the fantasy as a result of that. But there has to be some point of relevance. And for many kids, in fact, I'd say for most of my students, it's those real world issues. So when I get to hear a kid come to our librarians at the school, or come to me and say, hey, do you have a book on this? Anytime I answer, well, no, or the librarians say, well, we really don't, then I steal that and I say, okay, I'm writing that book. And so one of the things for the Tornado, for instance, it was, well, do you have a book about a kid who's not the kid being bullied, but he sees another kid being bullied and is like a bystander and doesn't do anything to stop it? Do you have a book like that? And we searched for that kind of thing and found a couple of possibilities, but then I stole the idea and I wrote the book myself.
Yeah, I'd say most of the real life issues that happen in my books are things that concerned me as a kid and things that I'm witnessing my own kids going through now. I have twins that are 13 and a just turned 15-year-old. So I've sort of been stealing from my own kids all these years. Don't know what I'm going to do when they grow up, but so many of my books come back to sort of finding your place in your family, finding your place in the world, finding your place amongst your friends and figuring out who you are. And so even though my books run the gamut of a lot of different subjects and, you know, larger things than that, all of them ultimately come back to figuring out who you are and where you belong. And in real world, you have to have humor to deal with that. So I take these sort of serious real world issues and throw in as much humor as I can, because if I didn't have humor, especially this past year, I would not have survived. And I also throw in my dogs because I also need my dogs to survive everything. So I tend to have pets in all of my books as well, because that's an important part of real life. But oh my gosh, I seriously really, who else, raise your hand, Renegades, if you want to write that series Bible for these two. It's killing me. My type A personality is going crazy.
Can I tell a story really quick? This is one of my favorite authoring stories. It's not about me. One of my favorite authors growing up was a fantasy novelist named R.A. Salvatore, Bob Salvatore. He's written like 60 books or something like that. And I saw him at a panel once, and somebody asked him, with all these books, how do you remember what's happened to the characters way back when? And they asked him about story Bibles, and he said, no, actually, what I've been doing recently is I've been going with an anonymous ID on chat rooms about my books, and I ask questions like, hey, do you remember all the magical things that this character has found throughout the series? And then the crowd, like Reddit, will give him all the answers, and he's like, cool, now I've got it. So so if you've got, like, you know, you can put a question on Goodreads as somebody else, and fans will come and they'll answer the questions for you, and so you can use that as a convenient way to get your information.
All right, that's great. We're going to all join on now for one last little goodbye. And you guys have been amazing. Thank you all to all the media specialists and librarians who have stayed on for this. I think a couple of booksellers in there that we really appreciate. We would, if we can get a screen with all of us, we'd like to take a picture, but really rapid fire. I'm not seeing gallery. Do we have to put ourselves in gallery view? Is that the check? All right, there we go. I'm not that smart. I'm going to the rapid fire go through everyone, because this is the most common question we get, or question we get all the time. I want you to tell me the book that you were a kid that you read that hooked you on books of writing and lit. And we're going to start with Erin. Erin, what was your book?
Ramona Quimby, age 8.
Hena, what's your book?
That was my book, but I'll say Little Women after that.
Little Women, which she wrote a Little Women version that last year. It's great. Max?
Bart Simpson's Guide to Life.
Max coming through like Max. Christina, and right now it might be Little House on the Prairie's Guide to How to Make It Through the Wilderness. But before that, Christina, what's up?
The Hobbit.
The Hobbit. Sarah M.
This Can't Be Happening in McDonald Hall, written by our friend Gordon Corbin.
Gordon Corbin, the amazing Gordon Corbin. Beth McMillen.
Weston Game, Ellen Raskin.
Uh-oh, I think you just stole Stewart's, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, this book right here, The Weston Game by Ellen Raskin, that one, that book.
All right, I'll give Stewart a chance to come with another one. Elizabeth Eulberg.
The Betsy Tacy series by Maud Hart Lovelace.
Oh, there we go. Kate?
Well, since Weston Game's been taken, my other one would be The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper.
All right, Weston Game is quite the popular one in this crowd. Jake Burt.
James and the Giant Peach.
Oh, I thought you were going to say James Ponti. That was for a second there. I was very touched, and now because you are young enough to have read stuff. Yeah, this is when I feel old. I used to write kids TV, and half of these people watched the shows I wrote when they were kids, and I was a full-grown adult. So that's very depressing to me. Jarrett Lerner.
There's a Boy in the Girl's Bathroom by Louis Sachar.
Oh, all right, a nice. Supriya.
The Babysitter's Club.
Babysitter's Club, great choice. Stewart also now lost Babysitter's Club, which was his backup. So Stewart, what do you got?
The Encyclopedia Brown series.
So that's definitely in for me, but mine was from the Mix-Up Files, and this is basically Frank Weiler. We really love librarians and all that you do for us. We really love independent bookstores and all that you do for us. We will ask, please buy our books. You don't have to buy all of them, but buy, if enough, buy some of them, but you can buy all of them. Stewart wants you to watch Disney Plus, but Sarah does want you to watch Disney Plus, so you can pick either side of that debate. That's like the Taste Great, Let's Filling debate of middle grade fiction at the moment. If you like our books, go on Goodreads and rate them and review them and let other people know that you like them. That's very helpful to us. Does somebody know how to take a still image picture of this so we have proof of that? Elizabeth Eulberg is picked as staff photographer. So everyone do your intelligent look.
Sorry, people keep nobody comment on the chat. Nobody comment on the chat for 2 seconds because it keeps popping up and then it hides James's beautiful face. Okay. Oh, no, it's gonna. Sorry. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I have to do it again. Please don't comment on the chat for just 2 seconds. Just 2 seconds. It does. It covers James's face. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Renegades of Middle Grade.com is a place you can check out for stuff. Country Bookshop, they put in the thing. There's links you can go to order the books you've seen tonight. And we are going to end it with, I'm going to show you our little school visit video. It's 5 minutes. You have to stay for the whole thing, but it's really pretty good. The wonderful Liesl Shirtlift made this. She's not here tonight, but she's with us always in spirit. And here is that.
Authors aren't able to do in-person school visits right now, but that's okay because technology is making it possible to do some things that normally would have been pretty hard, like allowing students to meet 3 awesome authors at once. I would say like the what if, the idea, the aha moment is like the seed for a story. And then I always say like, to kids, like, so that's the seed of the story. And how do I get that story to grow is ask questions of who, what, why, when, where, how.
I eavesdrop on Elizabeth and I just try to get her ideas and put them on paper before she can put them. They come from all over.
Almost all of my ideas for books come from something that happens to me in real life.
I mean, there's all this work you can do to sort of get ideas, like observe, experience, let your mind wander.
To me, I think great story is derived from great characters.
I think a great story is one that makes you have all the emotions.
Problem, too. A great problem for that character to solve.
I need to figure out every single detail and clue before I start writing, and I'm very curious about how you guys approach writing your mystery.
Not that way. Absolutely. and it's not, I wish I had the talent to do that.
I struggle mightily. I am constantly doing and undoing. It is a mess. I mean, it is a mess.
I have to write from start to finish.
I cannot write a book until I have the first line.
My first line is the last line that I write in my book.
I usually come up with the first line before I write or before I've conceptualized most of the story.
First lines are so important and they're so hard. I agonize over the first.
I do agonize over that, but it feels, but I know it when it comes, when I find it. It's like, that's it, that's the one. Yeah.
I love hearing how we all do things differently, and there's no right way or wrong way to wind up in the same place.
So this is just half of the drafts I went through with one of my books. I actually really enjoy revising.
Usually I'm terrified to dive back in and revise, but usually once I get going, I enjoy it.
It's definitely a collaborative experience where everybody weighs in. It's not just the author and the illustrator, but it's the designer, the editor, the sales team, the marketing team, everybody comes together.
In the case of Zoe Washington, they had 2 different versions of her on the cover, and they gave me a choice and ended up liking this one the best, and they ended up going with that. The original book was this, to paperback.
Oh, wow.
To the book fairs, which is like, almost like I survived, inside it's the exact same work.
Yeah.
It really does show like how
the cover can influence your perception of what's inside. It makes me so happy to see kids light up when I share something personal that they can connect with, whether it's a feeling or something about my background or being a writer or some of the struggles I've had, to be able to round out that experience for them, to read books and then to meet the person who's telling those stories, I think is really, really powerful.
Visit renegadesofmiddlegrade.com to learn more about booking a virtual visit with 3 of our amazing middle grade authors.
All right. So thank you all so much for spending time with us this evening. Thank you for sharing our books with young readers. It means so much. And we just appreciate you. You guys have a stay safe, and hopefully see you soon in person.
Thank you, James.
Thanks,
Thank
James.
you, everyone. Thank you, James. Thank you,
Workshop.
Kimberly.